Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to do a very quick video. I posted a question on my Instagram account the other day asking if people would like a video where I basically just talk about my revision schedule this Easter and my timetable and basically how I'm planning my time in order for me to cover everything I need to before I return back to university at the end of April. That is what I am going to do today. This, if you can see, is just, you have a rough idea of just what my timetable looks like. Each one of these represents a different week of Easter. So I have 5 weeks off for Easter. Which is 1 week than I'm used to. In my undergrad I only had 4 weeks, so this makes a nice change but is very welcomed because there is so much that I actually need to cover this holiday. Okay, so this is week 1 and this is today's. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit just so you've got a slightly better view. So as you can see, I have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday on down here on the left hand side, and then across the top here I've got, it just says topics 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which is a bit confusing because there are 7 days of the week, but we'll just move on from that. So you will also notice that these are colour coded, so you've got green bits, you've got red sections, pink and blue. And then if I go to week 4, there's also orange and there are blank ones. So I'm just going to quickly explain what each of these colours mean. So everything in green is what I would class as core material that we need to know that is not anatomy, pharmacology or sock pop or VLE, as those have their different colours. So core is basic physiology and cell and tissue biomedicine, things like that that are really important and form the basis for the pharmacology and the anatomy. So going on to anatomy, anatomy is red. Now I also mentioned pharmacology, so you can see on this week I've got 3 blocks of blue, those are pharmacology, and all the pink stuff is sock pop, which is social and population perspectives, or VLE, which is value, laws and ethics, and those are 2 of the many themes that we cover in our course at Warwick. Got a squeaky chair. Now I'll just try and give you a rough overview. At Warwick our teaching is split up into 5 blocks, which is further subdivided into themes as I've mentioned above. I've mainly based my revision around each block, so all of this is block 1, and block 1 continues all the way up to there, the body of knowledge. And if I just zoom in, you will see that I've actually got a section called block review, and that's basically just a chance for me to go over everything I've learnt and go over cards, questions, things like that, or go over things that I don't quite fully have my head around, or if I've fallen behind, it's a chance for me to catch up, things like that. So that's block 1, and as you can see, that takes up 9 days, because I've got 7 days here, Monday all the way through to Sunday, and then Monday and Tuesday, so that's 9 days. Block 2 then starts the next day, and that goes up all the way until the following Thursday. So that's, again, that's 8 days, 8 to 9 days, but you will notice that I've also got a gap here, which, again, if I zoom in, is a catch-up day. You'll notice that I've planned to do somewhere between 5 and 7 lectures per day on this revision plan, and that sounds like a lot, and it is a lot, and as a result of that I have incorporated times in the timetable for me to catch up. So I've got my block reviews, and I've also got catch-up days, which I've tried to put on Sundays, but also I have at the end of some blocks. In terms of deciding whether or not I'm going to do 5, 6 or 7 lectures, it has really depended upon what I'm studying on that particular day. This first day, today is Monday, and as you can see from my first day of revision, I've given myself 7 lectures to do. Now if I zoom in, you will see that the tick marks show what I have done today. And biological molecules, cells and genes, cell membranes and transport, cell signalling, coverings and tissues of the body. Those were the core lectures that I have covered today. And those were covered in Learning Medicine Week, so the very first week at medical school. And they cover the very basics of what we need to know. And if you don't know those things, you can't really do a medicine degree. They're so fundamental to our teaching, and because of that they're quite basic concepts, and especially with a background in medical science from my undergrad, they're topics that I really do feel comfortable with, and so I knew wouldn't take me very long to do, and that's why I decided I would do 7 lectures today. You can also see I've got 2 pink topics. Just for the purposes of this, I'm going to refer to Sock Pop and VLE together as pink topics or pink stuff. There is a reason why it's called pink stuff, but I shan't go into it here. I've also got 2 of those here as well. They are not as content heavy as, say, these core lectures, anatomy, pharmacology, things like that, and that's why I've also got 2 today. So giving myself this somewhat easy day, but also productive because I have covered 7 topics or 7 lectures, gives me the confidence that I'm in the right revision zone, I am productive, and I'm able to get through the tasks that I set myself. If I zoom in again, you will also see that I have started to plan my day for tomorrow, and that I have got numbers next to these. So 1.5, 1.5, 1, 1.5, lower down I've got 2, and that is just me trying to plan out my time and make sure I am giving myself an appropriate amount of work to do each day. And as you can see, I haven't done all of them. I didn't do it for today, partly because I knew I'd be starting a bit later because it's taken me a while to set up my study space, so I didn't plan out my hours, but I have for the next 2 or 3 days, and that's just the number of hours I think it will take me to go over that lecture, to revise it, to get everything I need into my brain, memorised, maybe do some associated questions, whether that's on Anki or from a review book or questions from textbooks, things like that. These are just estimates. I'm not saying that I have to finish it in that hour and a half. It's just for me so I can plan my time, and if I know that I've only got an hour until I am having my lunch, for example, I'll do that lecture as opposed to, say, that one. The other thing that I have tried to do is block my revision into similar subjects. So although they are arranged by block and therefore are all related, especially in the first block, there are lectures that go very well together, although they weren't necessarily given in that specific order. For example, if you were to look at my Friday, this coming Friday, you'll see I've got anatomy of the pancreas, liver and spleen, normal liver physiology, diseases of the hepatobiliary tract, hepatic drug metabolism, and then I go on to physiology of the small intestine and the autonomic nervous system. Now, although these lectures were given roughly in that order, I can almost say certainly that this anatomy lecture was not given directly before this one and was somewhere around here, and that's not a bad thing. It's just to do with timetabling and when lecturers are available and things like that. And that is perfectly fine. But for the purposes of revision, for me personally, I think it's really useful to start the day with some anatomy, because that gives you a clear basis from which you're going to be learning the physiology and the pharmacology. So this for me is the day where I revise everything related to the liver. I've also tried to follow some form of a structure. So for example, I have normal and then disease and then drugs. And then obviously small intestine isn't completely related to the liver, but it is nearby and is also quite important. And as I said, I plan to do between 5 and 6 lectures every day, so I did need 2 other lectures. In addition to that, the physiology of the small intestine and autonomic nervous system, they're quite content-heavy lectures, and considering that in my undergrad I actually did a final year module on the liver and its role in health and disease, and also my dissertation was on the liver, I actually feel really confident with the liver, and I know that although those are 4 lectures on the liver, they shouldn't actually take me that long to do, and as a result of that, that's why I've decided to do 6 instead of 5, but that's purely because I know I'm more confident with the liver than something else, for example. Something else that you will probably notice is that I have tried, where possible, not to have an entire day of anatomy or an entire day of pink stuff. A lot of people will spend maybe 1 or 2 days purely doing pink stuff. So they'd spend a whole day on sock pop and values, law and ethics lectures, and that is perfectly fine. For me personally, I like to have these sort of scattered around the other weeks. I'll just flick through so you can see, scattered around here and there, mostly so that it can break up my learning. I think that if you do all the anatomy in one go and then all the physiology and all the pharmacology, then you might start to get a little bit bored, or you might lose focus quite quickly, and you'll want something to mix up your revision a little bit. And that for me is why I do try to mix things up a little bit. Now, as you can see, I have some very large chunks of red here. This is not ideal, but when I was planning it, I have tried to group them together and in a way that makes sense to me. So for example, these 2 here, they're both the tracts of the spinal cord. So I've got ascending tracts and descending tracts, and they go really well together. Special sensors and basal ganglia, okay, so they're not quite related, but I have got basal ganglia anatomy followed by the pharmacology of basal ganglia disorders, and so that's why I've got those 2 together. This is block 3, which is the brain and behaviour module. Now, a lot of people really struggle with this module. For me personally, I didn't think I struggled with it that much, but I didn't do very well on the formative, and so that's why I'm trying to give myself as much as I can for this block to aid my revision. Something else that you'll notice is that on this block, block 3, which I reach sort of week 3, week 4 time, I have these 2 orange sections. Now, these are guided learning, so at Warwick they give you tasks that you need to do as self-directed learning, and what they want you to do can vary from questions to watching PowerPoints, to researching things on Medline, for example, or basically just working through notes that they give you. Now, I've included these 2 guided learning sessions in particular to focus on. There were others which I haven't included in here specifically, but they're not completely off my list. I'm not completely ignoring them as such. I'm just trying to do the ones that I know that I struggled with the most or are the most content heavy, because I will have time after Easter to go over everything again. So that's why I have these two here. I've also placed them at the end of the block, and I've also got about a third of a day for a block review the following day. So if I do fall behind, or I am not behind and I'm happy and it doesn't take me long to go over everything again, then I can do the other guided learnings in here. Something that I'm not completely happy about, but at the time I couldn't find a way around, was the plans that I've made for my block 2 revision when it starts. You'll see that I have a lot of green all chunked together, so I have 2 whole days of pure core content, so physiology and things like that. Now, this is not ideal, and I'd rather probably not do it, but the content that is covered is, I've sort of bulked together, and they make 2 perfect days of revision. A final thing, which I'm not super happy about, but it is what it is, and it might change nearer the time, is that I have given myself basically a whole day of anatomy to finish my revision. Again, as I said, this is not ideal, but it does make sense, and it probably wouldn't take me the whole day to go over, especially as it's something that I have done very recently, although it will be 5 weeks since I've done it by the time I get back to it. This is anatomy of the upper limb, basically. So I've got the pectoral girdle, which isn't upper limb, but is where it all starts, the shoulder, the arm, elbow and forearm, wrist and hand, brachial plexus, and then I've got injuries to bones and joints of the upper limb, followed by upper limb nerve injury. And that is a very anatomy heavy day, but that does not surprise me in the slightest, because this block, which was the locomotion block, or basically covered all of the musculoskeletal content, is very anatomy heavy, and so as a result I don't really mind that that is the case, because that is purely the nature of the block and there's no other way around it. So something else that you may have noticed is that I haven't actually included any whole days off, and there is a reason for this. When I was planning this, I basically got an Excel spreadsheet up and I counted the number of lectures that I had to do and the topics that I wanted to cover, and I counted the number of days until the end of the holidays, and it came up to around 35. What I did then was I subtracted 10 days off. Now the reason I chose 10 was I knew that I would take the Saturday and Sunday off immediately after coming home from uni, and I knew that I wouldn't probably get much revision done on the Sunday, the day before I start lectures again, as I'd be driving, I'd go to church in the morning, pack up all my stuff, and it would just be a very hectic day and I wouldn't have time to revise. So that's why I initially took 3 days off. I also knew that I wanted, if possible, to have a week off, so I took off another, I think it was 5 or 6 days in the middle, because I had plans to maybe go away. So I knew that I might want to take a couple of days off to go away for a few days with my mum. So I took off another, I think it was 5 or 6 days. So in total, I think I had about 10 days off that I wanted to do. So I had my 35, 6 days, whatever, minus 10, and it came up to 20, let's say 26 days. I then counted the number of lectures, as I said, and divided the number of lectures by the number of days. And it came up to something like 5.16 recurring lectures per day. So that's where I got my number of 5 to 6 lectures per day. Now, when I planned this, I thought, if I plan it all as if I don't have any days off, then naturally I will have days off at the end, as you can see here. And as a result of that, it's meant that I'm not concerned that if, for example, I go away, let's say random date, so let's say I go away this Thursday and Friday, I can just copy and paste everything 2 days later and my revision timetable won't be affected. I mean, it'll take a couple of minutes to copy it all up and fix it and everything, but at the end of the day my revision won't be affected, and that's why I haven't planned to have any specific days off. In addition to this, I'm quite unpredictable as to when we decide to go away. We don't really plan. And also, for me personally, I find having specific days off doesn't work for me as such. I like to be able to have the flexibility. So in my head, I know that in total, theoretically, I could have 4 days off or 3 days off. And so if, for example, I felt ill one day, then I won't stress. If I'm just really not feeling that motivated and I can only get through half the lectures, that's fine. I'll only be half a day behind and it won't matter. It's just a way for me to stay de-stressed and calm, because I know that these revision plans are so demotivating at times, and they can really make you feel like you're not going to achieve it, you're not going to finish it, and that they're doomed to fail. And to an extent that is true, but because I know that that is true, I have given myself the allowances and the spaces to accept that fact and just keep revising as much as I possibly can. So I think that concludes my video on my revision timetable and my plans for this Easter. I think it's really important to say that this is for me, and although it may or may not work for me, we are yet to find out, it most definitely won't work for everyone, as everyone has their own ways of planning their time and organising when they do what and when. So this is just my routine. This is what I do. I do this pretty much every year whenever I have exams to revise for. And yeah, I mean, this just gives you a little insight as to what I'm doing this Easter. I'm hoping that I'm still going to be able to make videos, but we shall see. You can see me. Hello. Hello, camera. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you found this vaguely interesting or useful or anything. I hope that you've gotten something out of this. If you have exams to revise for, good luck. Try your hardest, that's all you can do. Let me know if you'd like a video just outlining roughly how I revise in terms of the notes and the resources and things that I use. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this video and I shall see you next time. Bye bye.